Today we're going to be talking about the history of tarot, aka cartomancy, which is really just the divination, using cards for divination purposes. But if you like the content that I'm providing for you and you like everything that I'm doing for you, please hit that subscribe button and the bell to get future notifications when I upload new content. So, the history of tarot. So tarot decks first appeared in Italy around 1430, and it started really more as a card game where they had the 4 original suits, like clubs, spades, diamonds, hearts. So they had all of that stuff. But then they decided, you know what? We need a 5th suit. We're just going to throw that in there. And so they added what's called the trump cards, or what we would later call the major arcana. Now, most of Europe did play this game with the exception of the British Isles, the Balkans, and the Iberian Peninsula. There are many different game names for the tarot. The tarot is more of a French name, but there is also the tarot, and the tarot can be spelled many different ways with the addition of another R and then a CK, or just a C, or just a K, or, whatever they want to do. And the game style is played just slightly different depending on what country you're in. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same. We'll be talking about that in a future episode. Now, the oldest surviving deck of tarot cards, and there are about 15 of them, that was painted by the Visconti Sforza, Sforza, and they were done in the 15th century for the rulers of the Duce or Duchy. I don't know. It could be Duchy, D-U-C-H-Y, in which case I am so sorry you have that name. The Duché of Milan. But tarot didn't start being used as a form of divination until the 1700s, the late 1700s. But in 1781, you've got French, Swiss, Protestant clergymen, say that 3 times fast, Antoine Court, or as he liked to be called because he gave himself this name, Antoine Court de Gébelin. I think I said that right. I am not sure. I don't know. He published his book Le Monde Primitif. And in this book, he gave the idea or the impression that the tarot cards stemmed all the way back to late Egypt, derived from the Book of Thoth, and that those ideas were then transformed into pictures on a deck of cards. He believed that the word tarot derived from 2 Egyptian words, tar, like the tar on the road, T-A-R, and ro, like R-O, like Romeo. And that was supposed to mean the royal road to wisdom. Get it? Road? I'm hilarious. Tar Road. In 1785, there was this dude, Etiella, which was a pseudonym for JeanBaptiste Elliot. Now, I know I pronounced that one right. And he was a French occultist who first used the tarot cards as a form of divination to a much wider, broader audience. So it was like he went up to the public and he was like, hey, did you know the cards could do this stuff too? And so he published his ideas with correspondences between the tarot and astrology, the tarot and the elements, the tarot and Kabbalah, etc. Atiela and Antoine had a little bit of a controversy, a little bit of a rivalry, because Atiela did not believe that Antoine had credible sources, which he didn't. Everything that he decided to write in his book Le Monde Primitif had no backing. There was no historical evidence to back his claims, right? So he knew this. JeanBaptiste Elliot knew this, and he decided to make his own book in retaliation or in response to Antoine's book, and it was called How to Entertain Yourself with a deck of tarot cards. And he wrote that in 1785. It was his first book of methods of divination by tarot. And even Jean-Baptiste said that, he was introduced to the art of cartomancy well before Antoine made his book back in 1751. And so he would be the first to issue a revised deck specifically for divination in 1791. But the tarot deck as we know it, the one that everybody buys off the shelves, the one that is everybody's first deck of tarot cards, was done and produced by author Edward Waite. He was an author, scholar, and occultist. And he was initiated into many different occult institutions, such as the Golden Dawn in 1891, and also the Freemasons in 1901. He wrote occult texts on subjects including divination, esotericism, the Rosicrucianism, I know I butchered that up, Rosicrucianism, and of course Freemasonry, ceremonial magic, Kabbalism, and alchemy, amongst many other things. But even he had a little bit of controversy, a little bit of a rivalry, because what isn't any form of education and knowledge without a little bit of rivalry, right? It's all over the place because we love our trauma. So, but he had his with the occultist Aleister Crowley. Now, we may remember this name because he was the teacher for Gardner, who we know as the founder of the Wiccan religion. Edward Waite and Aleister Crowley, their rivalry was really more within texts. Aleister Crowley decided he was going to publish a book called, I believe it was called Moonchild, and it really was a book about, it was a fictional book about all of the people in his institutions that he didn't like their opinion. He didn't like the way that they felt or they thought about esoteric principles. So he decided he was going to talk smack about them and he was going to write this book. And Edward Waite was part of that book. So even that wasn't without a bit of controversy. But Waite's most known contribution to the occult / pagan world would be with his tarot deck, the Rider-Waite deck, also known as the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And this was first published back in 1910 with illustrations done by Pamela Colin Smith, who was also a member of the Golden Dawn. Waite authored the deck's companion volume, The Key to Tarot, which was then republished and in an expanded form in 1911 as The Pictorial Key to the Tarot, a guide to tarot reading. The tarot in itself is a set of playing cards, like I had mentioned before. And it is a tool of divination. They are divided into several different sections. The first two major sections are between the major and minor arcana. Now, the major arcana are the trump cards, that last fifth suit that was added later on. And there are 22 images in that suit that represent different major and slightly minor matters in one's life, from birth to death to education to marriage. And it represented the element of the soul, or the element of aether. And the major arcana is really told in story form as the story of the Fool, and is interpreted by major life changes. The minor arcana is actually the second division, major division, but constitutes the major body of the deck of cards. These are the 4 other suits, and the 56 cards in total, and they also represent different things. So, for example, the suit of wands, which is a representation of the element of fire, and this corresponds to matters of business and career. And that would correspond in a normal deck to clubs. Like if you looked at the wands, like the original wands, it looked like a club you would beat somebody over the head with. You know what I mean? So, wands, clubs, they're kind of like the same thing, maybe. But then you had the suit of cups. Now, the suit of cups would be then represented by the element of water. The element of water, the representation of love, and the representation of how we love and see each other. And then this was then, in a normal deck of cards, represented by the hearts. Aw, little heart. And then we have the suit of swords. Now, this is represented by the element of air, and also a representation of internal conflict, mostly like the mind. Like, have you been sleeping? Do you have any anxiety? Like these kinds of things. And this was represented by, in a normal deck, by the suit of spades. And lastly, we have the suit of pentacles, or the suit of coins, as it is in some other decks. And these are earthly matters. These are matters that deal with your environment, right? The materialistic stuff around you, your health, your wealth, your physical surroundings. And in a normal deck of cards, this would be the suit of the diamonds. Now, like I said, we're going to go a little bit further in future videos about how these cards were played as a card game. We will also talk about many different topics. Eventually, we will get to the inevitable question of, does the tarot really predict the future? But that's a story for another time. Thank you for hanging out and listening to my video. Again, if you like the content that I have, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, and I'll see you guys next time.